Yo, it's your boy Ancient Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew, -1 unfortunately, no Alpha Dean tonight. But we have the ever lovely Spiggs 18 or Anthony. And just as a quick reminder, if you haven't already, be sure to follow us here on Twitch, subscribe to us over on YouTube, and check us out on the Anywhere Door, which is Monte Cook Games' new platform, which is hosted on the Moonbeam network of streamers, whatever content channels. I forget the exact terminology. But MCG has helped them, kickstart or Backerkit their platform, and they're gathering as many MCG content creators in one spot. So if you're looking for more MCG content, that is the place to be. You will find a bevy of them. I think there's, I believe, almost 20 of us gathered there. But without further ado, Anthony, what are we doing here tonight?
Oh, today we're going to talk all about communities, guys. And sorry if I sound a little nasal. I'm slightly sick. I was hacking up a lung 2 seconds before we went live, but I'm okay. Good enough to talk about communities here with Al. But when we had the Cypher Kit, when the Cypher Backerkit ended, right? It got me thinking about companies like a company like how Monte Cook Games could continue to have like these super successful crowdfund projects, right? And how important it is for them to have a solid community to fall back on for general support, like social media promotion, and actually having physical players play their games both online and off. And I was talking to our friend Eric, and we were just talking about what companies that are successful, that have like these great, huge communities that they can rely on. So I figured that's not a topic. I don't think this is a topic we ever like talked about on air. So I thought it would be a good idea for us to, let's at least break down what our thoughts are. And for once, Al, I think this is a topic that me and you specifically, we actually have some insight in cultivating a community from the ground up, because that's what we did with the CU. We started this community. It was essentially me and you. And then, and now we have several thousand people over multiple social media platforms, all together, praising MCG, and, became a little family. So if it's okay with you, I figured I'd break it down into two major categories, right? And chat, yeah, this is a group, discussion as well. So feel free at any time to hop into the discussion. But the two categories I wanted to break it down into, and then of course there'll be subcategories within those two categories, is company run communities, as in run and managed directly through the gaming company, and fan controlled communities, because I think those are two really different areas and different social media platforms in which they have growth, especially fan run compared to company run and control community. So what are your thoughts on that? So is that a good way to break it down?
No, definitely. Those are definitely the two major, big categories of those kind of communities. They're either run by the company themselves, or they're run by, someone like us who are just diehard fans who, got their foot in the door early or whatever, right? But what I was gonna say, and this is like my asterisk for the conversation, I always like to be super upfront. I have not been a part of a ton of TTRPG communities specifically. I've been a part of a ton of online communities in general. But with TTRPG communities, I think almost every one I've been to, other than ours, has essentially been run by the company themselves, or like someone they've hired, someone who's actually on their staff. So I actually don't have a ton of experience with other fan-run communities, just ours. So just wanted to throw that asterisk, caveat, whatever thing out there.
How you have, though. Before we started Cypher Unlimited, we were a part of another Discord community that was a fan-run.
Yes,
and that community had 5,000 to 6,000 members in it at the time we
Yes, yes, you're correct. Yes, thank you for the correction. That was a period of time, like literally, I forget how long we were doing that right before
Yeah.
we started Cypher Unlimited. But like I said, and I was like kind of speaking over you. I kind of blocked that era out, so to speak. And it just showed me like we really needed to do what we did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because again, not to say that they ran that community poorly or anything. It's just no one really seemed interested in Cypher System.
Yeah.
That's really the like my takeaway from that community was, hey, not because let's be frank, that server was focused on 5e, I believe at the time, right? It was a D&D centric or
Yeah.
heavy, even though they had sections for other games, but those other sections were not popping at all. Like there was barely any conversation in those. Okay.
I will say this: when we started the CU, we did carry like 20 or so people from that community. Were our original 20 or so people in Cypher Unlimited.
Yes,
So
and
we did, and some of those people are still on the server to this day. So
that is correct. I can't think of any names off the top of my head, quite honestly. But yeah, I
mm,
do. I remember a few people came over. We ran one shots on that server.
yeah,
We got people interested in Cypher, wanted to play more. And then when we started this server, we just told them, hey, we started this thing. And yeah, it just kind of grew from there.
I believe Gecko came from that community. I believe Josh came from that community. There's a couple of people that I know that were originally there and then came over with us. But to go back to what we were talking about, right? So I figured that there's 4 questions that we should ask ourselves about every one of these communities, right? The first one is the obvious one. What's the difference between the two? The fan run version of a specific online, specific community opposed to a company run version. What are the benefits and the pros and cons of both styles of community within the same area? So like if we're talking about Discord, what's the benefit to having a fan run Discord opposed to having a company run Discord? What are the different subgroups for each of these communities, which I kind of touched on? And the most important question that we're going to ask for every single one of these is, where does MCG rate in each of these categories? Are they excelling in this specific community, or are they lacking? And if so, what are the reasons? And is it a benefit for them to invest in that style of community?
Definitely
So
good jumping off point. Yeah.
yeah. All right, so it probably makes more sense to do the company run communities if
Yeah.
or do you want to do the fan run? All right, so the first and chat, I just jotted down a quick group of communities that I thought of. So if you have any ideas of communities that I may have missed, please just post them in chat and we'll definitely hop on and talk about them.
Yeah, there was a
And
few
also,
companies mentioned already. If you look at the chat history there, like I'm butchering the pronunciation.
mm,
Cordova's company, the Gauntlet, has a great Discord community, says Jason. DM Jack said Roll for Combat would be a good creator and company to reach out about this topic.
yeah,
Raven said they basically did this for Fudge, like they ran the mailing list, the core, that was the core community back in the day, and that's how they kept. Like that's an interesting one because that was a real physical thing being mailed out to people to keep the community alive.
yeah,
That's neat. Um,
yeah,
and what else was said here? Or Lord Burdock said, obscurity is the biggest challenge facing a lot of creators and contributors, and putting yourself out there's not easy. Yeah, that's definitely true. And
all right,
yeah,
the first,
good.
oh, I'm sorry.
No,
The
go ahead.
first company run area, I put social media groups and I grouped these all together, like Facebook, Twitter, or X, Blue Sky, and I put Moonbeam in here, but Moonbeam should actually be in a different category. But essentially, these are groups. Discord. These are groups that if the company themselves ran to increase engagement and to increase conversations happening about this specific game and to promote internally amongst their fan base. And I think this is the most common. I think you pretty much see every gaming group has a Facebook group. MCG used to have a Discord, but they realized our Discord had outgrew there, so it made more sense for them to just allow us to do it. But most companies have a company-run Discord. Most companies have an official Twitter where they post every day to increase engagement, increase conversations happening. Right. Same thing with Blue Sky. Same thing with a Facebook group. So I think this is probably the most common company-run group. So I grouped in all the social media groups together.
I don't know if I would call Discord social media. I guess it kind of is at this point because there's all that like.
Yeah, Discord and Moonbeam are kind of the asterisks. They could have been in their own little group.
It kind of grew into kind of a social media platform though, from like what it was when we first started using it to what it is now. Because now there's all that boosting stuff and like you can set up server subscriptions. Not that we've done stuff like that. We just appreciate all the boost because it helps keep our quality on the voice channels very good. But yeah, they're definitely sort of leaning towards social media-ish territory now. And yeah, the fact, again, most companies have direct control over these things, and I think that just makes sense because they want to control their branding, right? They want to control how they're perceived. They want to control the direction of conversations in social media, right? So it just makes sense for them to be the ones to run those aspects, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that Moonbeam and Discord might be separate from this, but specifically Facebook, Blue Sky, and Twitter, they technically won't be a community as in there's a massive amount of open dialogue happening, but it does have engagement, right? When a company like Monte Cook Games, Evil Hat, Darrington Press, when they all post on these social media platforms, you might see 100 to 200 chained conversations of not the company itself, but fans of the company having open discussions. So it still gives you the community feel, and that's what I meant by why it fits into this whole community discussion. And I think this is a no-brainer for any company. They need to have some sort of social media presence, and these are the easiest to do and the easiest to maintain. You don't need much moderation.
Yes. There were two very good points made in chat. Jason said, I think Facebook and Discord are groups, while Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, blah, 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 are like broadcasting, like you're just presenting information. That's not to say like you're saying people have discussions in those threads. So you do get a sense of community through those engagement aspects.
Yeah. And realistically, certain people there's a lot of people that only do one social media. I know the younger generation tends to do it all, but a lot of the older folks, they may be like, I'm only on Twitter or I'm only on Facebook. So their only interaction with that company and other members that follow that company is on that specific platform. That's why I added this to this list. Like, you know how many people we know that till this day that been in our Facebook group for 5-6 years but still haven't joined our Discord, or they only joined the Discord for CypherCon, and then when CypherCon is done, they get off of Discord because they don't want to deal with the pings. They don't want to deal with the constant overload of conversations happening. So, and there's people like that on Blue Sky and people like that on Twitter, on X.
They definitely exist, and that's why I think it was important for you to include those in the community aspect, like this discussion, basically. But I will say this: what the other comment that I wanted to read from the chat. This goes more about like I guess how they define community, right? Group and community. And DM Jack said, I think having a group and community requires more work and engagement, like what you do. I'm assuming us, like what we do. It isn't just this is where we announce stuff, but it should be actual conversations around the game. 100% valid, and that is where Discord and Facebook come into play. And again, in smaller aspects with like Blue Sky, Twitter, blah blah blah. Because if you're doing it right, those conversations still do happen, albeit on a smaller scale, within these threads on Twitter, whatever, all these social media sites. So yeah, I think having that better framework for like a Discord or Facebook for active conversation, right, is much better. But again, that doesn't discount the benefit of having conversation starters on social media.
And that's the $1 million question, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why we see certain companies not engage in having those big Discord groups, because now you open up it opens up the floodgates for moderation. It opened up, when you have all these open discussions and these events happening in groups like ours in the CU, it is a lot of freaking work. And a lot of companies, if we're being 100% honest, a lot of companies don't have fan bases that are willing to do that work. The back of the house work for free. So, it is it's a catch-22. So it's easier for especially a smaller company to just have just post their stuff on open sites like Blue Sky and X, than it is to say, hey, we're going to cultivate a community on Discord or build a 5,000 person community on Facebook and have all these discussions happening. Because I think a lot of times people don't realize how much back of the house work is required on the CU. It doesn't seem like a lot, but there is several hours of work a day just involved in moderation and planning events, making sure people have, settling disputes. People want to run games on the server, making sure that people want to post games on the server, stopping people from trying to charge people for games on the server. There's a bunch of little things individually, but over the course of the day could be 1 or 2 hours worth of work.
No, it definitely adds up. Definitely adds up. I will say that. As well, speaking from personal experience.
Yeah.
But Jason also says another great thing in chat. Well, generally for companies of 10 plus people, one person has the title of social media manager. So it shows you how important they think that is. And it's not that they think that it is important to make sure that engagement is happening, especially in this digital age where everyone's on their phones, everyone's clicking through a website when they're sitting at their computer, either at work or at home. So it's important. It's not to think it's important. It's important that someone, whether it be one person in a 10-person company or a smaller company that is 1 or 2 people, that one of those or both those people are doing the social media or the Discord or whatever, right? It's very rare nowadays to see a company doing just one of the things, right? Like you don't see someone just on Twitter or just on Blue Sky. They kind of have to do it all to have that umbrella, and that takes time and energy.
Yeah. All right. So my question for you on this is, not fan run, but company run. Where do you rate MCG in this category, in the social media groups category? How do you think they are doing when it comes to cultivating or developing a community in these spaces? We can't count Discord because we already mentioned what that was.
So
they have an active Facebook group, though, to be honest.
I have to mention our Discord. I just have to, because they're kind of intertwined. Like, even though but we're separate entities. Yeah. We'll go in the fan run. But I think, because again, they drive engagement, right? They do a pretty good job of it. And with the meme contest, with the character sentence art contest, just talking about their releases and posting neat art, just random, hey, and post a snippet about the game it's from. All that stuff drives conversation, and it does it pretty well. And I'm still going to say it, the asterisk is a lot of that conversation then spills over into Discord. But yeah, they do what I was mentioning earlier, where they have those good conversation starters that then spill over into the more chat heavy social media areas like the Discords, like the Facebooks, like the Threads. I don't really use Threads that often, but like the real time chats that they have on Facebook. Yeah, so they do
Yeah,
I think they do a pretty decent good job of those conversation
it's
starters and building engagement and whatnot.
7 minute GM brought up a great point, and I agree with their point wholeheartedly. When it comes to social media posting, MCG does a great job because I think one of the benefits of them is that a majority of the MCG staff members, especially the designers, not so much Monty, but everyone else, are very active on Blue Sky, very active on Facebook, putting posts. Sean, Bruce, and Shauna are very active on social media. So I think they do a great job of representing and cultivating and trying to, reach a broader audience. So in this category, I would give them an A. I would definitely give them an A in this category. This is the second. I'm gonna move into the second category, and I think this is an underutilized one. But some companies super excel at this, right? This is official organized play, right? That's official organized play, which has its own community in itself. There's some people that only play organized play, right? Official organized, and I'm gonna also include conventions and communities built around organizing and training GMs for official games. So first off, when I think of organized play, you have to give it a Paizo. You have to give it a D&D. I think Paizo does an exceptional job when it comes to organized play and setting up. They filling up multiple rooms at conventions for organized games, and they're running games in multiple cities simultaneously, and that's comes with a pretty significant cost for the company to arrange and organize this, which a lot of people tend to take for granted. And I think it's a great way to build community. And organized play. I mean, I'll let you talk, but then we'll talk about MCG's take on organized play. But
Yeah, so it's definitely because again, you would know more about this because I don't know if you've actually done organized play, but you've definitely
slightly,
researched it
yeah,
more than me. So I've
yeah,
definitely never even considered it. Right, I don't care about that stuff. When
yeah,
we played at your house, and and then
yeah,
it spread from there. Right,
yeah,
like we just played at home
yeah,
and now online with friends. Right, that's just how I like to play. Right, but that's not discounting how important that is because you're 100% right. There's some people who only play organized play because they feel that's an official quote unquote way to
yeah,
play. So a lot of people again they not drive they gather to these things like like you said
yeah.
Pathfinder and D&D they're the top dogs of this, right?
Mm.
And again, I think MCG tried their hand a little bit at this and kind of
Yeah.
what yeah what their organized
You
play
remember like
kind of is,
5 years ago?
yeah,
You
just for like a
remember
little
that?
while, it was weird, yeah. Um,
It lasted like 8 months, and then I never heard from it again.
and the weird part about that is again we have I mean not the weird part I guess
Mm.
MCG's take on it is they have the asset team. They'll have
Yeah,
asset team members running games at stores, conventions, blah blah blah, and that's kind of like quote unquote organized play because they're you know not representatives of the their
yeah,
asset team. They're representatives of the company essentially. So in a
yeah,
way, that's kind of like organized play in a way, but it's
yeah,
not exactly
yeah.
that. Yeah.
I put it in there because I think both of those go hand in hand, and I agree with you. I think the asset team and the management of the asset team is a great thing, and I think it spread the love of not only Numenera, especially Numenera, but it spread the love of the Cypher system into multiple regions that may not have known about it if it wasn't for an asset team member going to a local hobby shop and running. Dean does that in Buffalo all the time. He goes to hobby shops and runs games through the asset team. They also provide you with material, adventures to run, handouts and stuff to give out. I think they do that really well. Like it could be, I, I would call it like a BB plus. It could be better, but organized play, I think, is something entirely different. And I think one of the reasons that organized play is really difficult for companies to pull off is because of the time commitment and the cost associated with running an organized play. You know, and I think that's why you see the bigger companies are able to do it on a much grander scale than most other companies, because they have the resources in order to be able to, you know, to accomplish something, you know, of that scope. But I will say that it doesn't mean that a smaller company can't do a monthly or a yearly organized play event. And I think that MCG would really benefit. And not just to toot our horn, but if they want to hire us to do it, or have us host it, we could definitely make, you know, at least make that happen somewhat. You know what I mean? Like I think that they are kind of missing out on having an official where you could carry your character over from adventure to adventure. And I remember like 5 or 6 years. This might have been when Darcy was still.
Wait! But before you continue, and I lose my train of thought, because I'm gonna 100% forget this thought. But they're in a perfect position to do this, actually, because they have the new Strange coming out, and that would be amazing for an organized play. Like, you do it once a month, you play your Strange character in this world, and then next month you bring that base character, and now it's going to a different world next month. I think, I just want to throw that out, I think that would be an amazing setup for organized play for MCG, using the Strange as a jumping board. And again, that would also get new people interested in the Strange who don't necessarily know what it is. I think that's an amazing idea. MCG, please, I know you're listening. Like that, let's talk about this in private, guys.
Jason brought up a good point. He said, honestly, some of those remote adventure leagues happen in stores for D&D is successful because D&D is sold in every store. 100%. But you know, how do you get your stuff sold in every store? By demand. So if you have organized play and people willing to go to these stores, customers are going to ask these brick and mortar stores, hey, do you have the Strange? And if they don't, they're going to get it. And so I agree with you that they could do it, but you still have to figure out a way to create that demand. Like, you know, everything can't happen organically. Sometimes you got to force it to happen.
No, I think what you were saying before is an excellent idea as a jumping off point, starting point for all this. Like, we could do it on Discord, like once a month. Like, it's kind of like CypherCon, but just once a month, one day. Like, hey, we're doing organized play. It's going to be this adventure, this, you know, make your character in this specific way, and then we run it. And then, you know, hey, next month is this adventure. Whether we use the same characters or not, it's whatever. But
and what I mean by organized play, it has to be, for me to consider organized play, it has to be official MCG material.
Yeah,
like
that's what I mean. Like,
adventures.
like that's what I mean. MCG could provide us with like a one-shot adventure, or like the jumping off point to the Strange campaign that's like a connected series of one-shots, essentially, which is how I'm viewing it. Because that makes it easy for someone to jump in like month 3, so to speak. Like, they don't have to be there from the beginning, right? So you kind of want it to be like episodic, right? Again, I don't know how organized play actually normally is, so I'm just thinking of the best way to have like anyone jump in at any time. You know what I mean? Like, if you miss the first month, you can still come in month 2, month 3, so to speak.
I mean, you could even do meat grinder adventures, and that could be considered. You know who else does really good organized play? Is the game you like with the funny dice.
MCC or DCC?
DCC. They have a fantastic organized play, and they'll do organized play with just meat grinders, level 0 characters, and run it for 2 or 3 days, and whatever characters are alive at the end of that, start the organized play. Like, you know, like there's a lot of different ways that you could set it up, right?
I love that idea. I love that one.
But they also have a fantastic organized play. So I give them a B+ on the GM and the asset team. But unfortunately, when it comes to organized play, I got to give them a D.
A D? Isn't it an F because it's non-existent, or an NA because it doesn't really exist right now?
I gave them a D because they did attempt it like 4 or 5 years ago.
All right. We'll give them credit for the attempt. We'll give them credit for the attempt.
So yeah. But I do think that there's a lot of capable people that'll be able. But of course, there's a cost associated with that. But there's a lot of capable people that, and not only us. I'm talking about there's plenty of capable people that'll be able to start organizing this for them if they really wanted to, and they didn't want to do it in house. But like with everything, when you go outside of your company, there's always costs associated with that. So, all right. Yep. So the next company-run community, guys, do you agree with us on the organized play thing?
I think earlier on, I definitely saw Starheart say he would love to see organized play, and that the Strange would be a great starting point for that.
And there's diehard communities that just focus on organized play. Like you could really have a big community that just does that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, no, I was gonna repeat.
All right, so So the next one I added to this company-run communities is official channels for live streams and actual plays, and an official video channel like YouTube. So you know how Dungeons and Dragons, how Wizards of the Coast, Paizo, I think Darrington Press is probably the best at this. Having actual plays to actually promote their products, and I'm not talking about content creator fans, because that's an entirely different community, but the company themselves putting out actual plays, putting out talk shows, live streams, whether it's on Twitch, YouTube, or any of the live stream platforms. And I mean, Darrington Press is the one that immediately comes to mind. Critical Role, they're probably the best. Honestly, they're the best that ever did it when it comes to promoting your own stuff through actual plays and shows. But there's a ton of other companies that attempt and have really good success, from having the creators themselves running and playing games. One that I could think of at the top of my head that was extremely successful was he's kind of taboo now, but Adam Cobell with Dungeon World, like 10 years ago, he really put his own game on the map by constantly running it on live streams with other popular content creators. And he developed a lane for Dungeon World just through social media, through live Twitch streams. And so, there is a way of fostering a community in this sense. I'm not talking about the fan one, because we'll talk about, but the company themselves, because Adam Cobell designed Dungeon World. That's why.
No, 100%. When a company is the one behind, their actual videos and whatnot, people love that stuff. People love to see the creators playing their own games, talking about their own games, blah, blah, blah. They love that. That's why that stuff excels, or, it can excel, right? What was I going to say? And when they go and do that, those actual plays, it's also the best way for them to, I guess, showcase the game, because they're the ones who wrote it. So they know the best way to, like, showcase the best aspects of it. So it just makes sense for companies to do that. Are we speaking about MCG yet?
I'll mention two other people. Draw Steel. That seems to be the route they're going as well. What's it, MDCMD or whatever it's called. They've been trying to promote George Steele through their own channel, and they had a leg up because they already had a social media Twitch and YouTube presence before the game came out. But that's the route they're going. And Jason mentioned in chat, Roll for Combat is a perfect example. Like, they have a weekly talk, weekly stream. They stream their actual plays. They have a community that's probably 10 to 15,000 people that watches their games, watches their shows. They're a perfect example of hey, we make books, but we also promote our communities focused on our Twitch, our YouTube streams, and our actual plays. So it can be done. I think MCG sporadically puts out adventures. I know when Darcy was there, they did it a lot more frequently, and they sporadically put out shows. They just I know Liv has recently been putting stuff out on YouTube, and I want to see them do more of that. I personally love it. I can't get enough of that content, but they're not non-existent in the space, but they could definitely do more.
Yeah, I would say they get a B- in this area, maybe even a C, because they don't really do it super often. And the reason I was leaning more towards a B- is because when they do it, people love it. Like, people go crazy. Like, those videos get viewed a ton. They get commented on a ton. And again, yeah, the conversation spills over into the other community spaces. So yeah, like, when they do it, it's great. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. They know what they're doing, but they don't do it super often.
And you know what it is? A little. The New Yorker gonna come out of me, but what pisses me off a little is that MCG has like 5 or 6 fantastic GMs. Bruce is a great GM. Sean's a great GM. Monty's a great GM. Charles is a great GM. You know what I mean? So they could be putting out some actual plays because all of them freaking are really high quality GMs. So I would love to see that. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I would love to see them putting out some, it don't have to be a campaign, but, at least once a month put out some actual play highlighting each of the.
I will say this, and again, I don't know if we're going to segue into fan run stuff soon, but another reason they may not do it super often is because they do come on our show quite frequently. Yeah. Not a ton for actual plays. I guess Sean is the most, he's been on the show most to GM.
Bruce has. Yeah. And Charles is supposed to be coming up.
So yeah, like when they want to do an actual play, I feel like they hit us up. Like, hey guys, we want to run a game. Yeah. Like, can we do it on your show? Like, you know what I mean? So, So in that sort of sense, they're still doing it, but it kind of leans towards the fan run aspect because we kind of are the ones who facilitate it.
yeah, but I think that's why we having this discussion, right? Because I want to show the difference between when a company does something as opposed to when it's run by a fan base. Because Jason mentioned Zeal Zaddy, right? Yeah, but that's a fan-run thing. That's not officially run by MCG. Like, there's a difference. There's some companies that handle all their actual plays, and it's a separate entity from, like MCG has a bunch of great people that run actual. Ken Hub comes to mind. Infinite Construct comes to mind. There's a ton of great people that run fan-run actual plays, but it's not an official MCG product.
Yeah, there is something to say that when it's officially hosted on their Twitch or their YouTube or whatever, it hits different. Like that's the only way to say it. It just hits different. And that goes for any like Twitch videos or YouTube videos or whatever, right? Actual plays. If it's the actual company producing said video, whatever, it hits different than a fan doing it. Even in our situation where we're fans, having them on doing it, it still kind of hits different. It's like, damn, they're cool for doing it with the fans, but like, where is their own official stuff, Like, so it's kind of.
And realistically, if we're being 100% honest, the views are different as well. We might get Sean to do an actual play, and we're not a huge channel, right? And we're not claiming to be, but we could get Sean to do an actual play with us, and we might. I don't want to get into like the analytics weeds, but we might be able to get 500 views in the first 2 or 3 days. That same video coming from, and it could be Sean on the MCG site, the same exact game, Sean running us, but on the official MCG site, that same video might get 1,500 views or 2,000 views on the first 2 days. And the only difference is on their site. You know what I mean?
It is definitely, because again, we were talking about subsections of communities, right? So like, there's a subsection who wants, to see actual companies doing it, right? And those people will only watch the videos if they come from the official site, right? They don't give a shit about Cypher Unlimited making the videos. They don't give a shit about any other fans making the videos. Even like you said, it's the same exact video just hosted under our name or whatever name, but it's not on the official site, so who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Again, that's a subset of person, for sure. Like a community member, there are people like that, for sure. And that's valid. That's 100% valid. Like, it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah. All right. So, how do you rate them when it comes to official, like the official, like live stream or actual play and official channel? I think we'll separate actual play from YouTube like shows, because I think we have seen growth on the YouTube end.
I see. Yeah, just like what I was saying before. See, because again, while the content is quality when they do it, people enjoy it, so to speak. They don't do it super often. That's the the biggest negative to it. They don't do it super often. Jason actually had a interesting comment to say, and I would call this a hot take. I think CR, Crunchyroll, Dimension 20, Glass Cannon, etc. have really raised the bar for production values of actual plays. MCG and MCDM have videos out there of them playing the games, but they look not great compared to the high production games. It might not be a great idea to put out videos like that.
I tend to disagree with that, because that's like saying if you don't have a Ferrari, you shouldn't be driving down Sunset Boulevard. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's not gonna do the professional actor thing. And newsflash, the majority of players aren't professional actors, and and I agree that it's a better quality, a better production, like a better overall money put into it. But that doesn't mean that everyone else isn't capable of just putting out actual plays how a regular table would play. So, like, I don't know if that should stop anyone from wanting to run actual plays just because Critical Role and Dimension 20 exist. You know what I mean?
Very much agree on that. Because with that mindset, like, we would have never got started. Like, we would have never did anything. It's like, oh shit, why would we do a talk show? Like, I don't know. You would know the talk. Like, so and so does a great talk show. Like, why the hell would we do it? Like,
and our production quality is crap.
Yeah, and we still do it. We've been doing it. Like, and the 7-minute GM is exactly my said what's exactly my mindset. Never let the best be the enemy of good, or what is it, great? Of the good. So, like, if you are worried about being the best, you'll just never do anything. Like,
and realistically, nobody's gonna do the 1.2 million. I was amazed. Critical Role season 4 did 1.7 million people on the first day of that stream of season 4. No one else is coming even close to that. So why would you even have them as the barometer of, like, when we do an actual play and we get 250 views, we high-fiving each other and doing backflip. But I'm not even trying to be in that world. You know what I mean?
What you call it? Jason said, and just to I guess back up what he was saying, if the goal is to sell the game to new players, a lot of them won't make it a minute into a video that's not fun to watch. And I agree with that. Like, but there's a difference between high production value and entertaining content, right? You can still be entertaining without having all that super high production value. Like, MCG is still, like, even though the production value like might not be visually as appealing or whatever, like, like shifting cameras, whatever the hell because I don't watch that stuff either.
Yeah, but not even. But do you honestly think? And I don't want to get into like a disagreement with Jason, but I vehemently disagree with that. Like, do you honestly? And I'll give you a perfect example. Critical Role was pulling numbers when it was just them at a table before they even had all the production value. The first season of them just role playing at Liam O'Brien's house was doing mad numbers, right? It had more to do with them being voice actors than it had to do with it being a production value. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't necessarily, and I've seen some high quality production value actual plays that get no views. You know what I mean? So I you know, like and so the concept of unless you're a voice actor, right, you shouldn't be doing actual plays to promote your thing is I don't necessarily agree with. So he put Shauna and Monty aren't actors, but are you going to tell me that? Have you ever played with Monty? He's a great GM. You know.
I mean, it's definitely valid in that like you need the video to be entertaining, right? But again, I don't think that has anything to do with the production value. Like videos can just be entertaining. Yeah, like as long as you have the bare essentials, like a decent mic, a decent camera, like people can understand what you're saying. Like if you go back and look at our first videos, like we had shitty cameras, we had shitty mics, like, but like we had to do something to get started. Like we weren't going to start like, and again, even now our production value isn't super duper amazing, but it has improved steadily over time. And that's the thing, like you need a starting point and then you gradually work to what works for you and what your community enjoys.
Yeah, either or. Granted, they should still be putting out videos. You know, like it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be an actor. Sometimes, like I don't personally watch. I'm not a consumer of actual plays. Like I'm gonna watch the whole damn thing, right? But I'm not gonna lie. When Daggerheart first came out, when I first got Tiny Dungeon, when I first got Draw Steel, before I'll skim the rules, but the next thing I do is search for an actual play. I'm not looking at the actual play for cinematic enjoyment. I'm looking for, okay, how does these rules work? And it's easier for me to learn the rule set by watching other people going through the mechanics for me. And then I'm like, oh, I was misreading this. This was going wrong. So they could provide that same service for Cypher System fans of, hey, and like what you said earlier, people would tend to go to the official site before they would go to non-official sites. So if someone wants to learn Cypher System, most people that don't know nothing about Cypher System would go to the Monte Cook Games YouTube channel before they'll go to any of us.
It's definitely how it does with some people. I'm not saying everyone's like that, but there is a subset of person who only wants to hear from the official, company, like whatever their platform they're on.
All right, so we sorry we're going off on a tangent. So we settled on the C with that?
Yeah.
All right, so the last one I had for community events, right? I mean, for company-run communities is official sponsored online events such as conventions, and since we're talking about MCG, I put New GM Month. I'm gonna give MCG an A because I think MCG does sponsor. They sponsor CypherCon, so you're gonna get the biased A answer from me. That they actually were willing, and even when they weren't officially sponsoring it, they were still giving a ton of stuff for raffles. So they definitely do not have an issue of putting in capital to do online events or paying someone to do it. And the other one is New GM Month, which they're the chief sponsor to that. It's a whole month dedicated to teaching people how to GM, and that required resources for them as well. So on this front, I think they excel at it.
I only give them an A in this, and I think it should count because you said online conventions, but they have a heavy presence in the physical, real convention space. And again, most of the time they're just guests or whatever, but they actually do help sponsor, or I believe they put money towards Gamehole Con. Like that's like almost not their convention, but they help they help with it, right? That's why they have their own floor. That's why. So I would say,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, they have a presence. MCG definitely has a con presence, and I know that Kate has been extending that con presence to Europe, where they're doing a lot of European conventions now. So they definitely have a con presence there as well. So yeah, I think they're A all around in this category. To be honest, this is one of their better.
I agree with that.
Better groups.
Yeah.
And I can't emphasize enough how cool New GM Month is. Like, I think that's kind of underrated. That, you know, it's not only MCG that does it. There's a ton of companies that do it, but MCG was, and I could be wrong, but I think they were either part of the initial starting plans for this, or they were early on one of the initial backers of this project. I know Charles is heavily involved.
But they definitely do this well, and I would say, and again, as far as how important this is for I guess what is it, officially run, like company is doing it, it is nice to see that the company cares enough to build out like an online convention, or hire someone to do it, or have the games present at conventions, which MCG does a lot of. And I think it's important that official companies do it, right? That just shows that they care to showcase their games, right? Like whether they have demos at their booth, or paid ticketed games at conventions. All that shows that, hey, the company is like showing they want the community to play their game and understand, and especially for newcomers, it's a great way for newcomers to experience the game at a convention. I know a lot of people play for their first time at a convention. That's another subset of community. People who are just convention goers, like they don't really go on online spaces, or very minimally. Their big thing is going to conventions in person. Like I love going to convention games, running games, and playing in games. I'll go to like 4 conventions a year. Like there are people like that. And so, yeah, I think it is important for there to be an official, capacity type games.
They definitely have a presence in the convention circuit for sure. And like I said, they're extending it beyond the United States, and where they, all over, they're doing a bunch of conventions in Europe now, which is a great thing because you're extending, your fan base, you're broadening it. So, yeah, I think they're going to continue to do that because I think that it's been fruitful for them to do the convention circuit. So I don't see them stopping that anytime soon.
No, facts. Again, I think that it also speaks to they enjoy it. They enjoy running their games. Like you can, and again, they do run games at the conventions, right? Like I've seen Sean running demos or something. Like the company themselves do sometimes run the games. Like it's not just asset team members, right? And people love to see that stuff. Like,
all right, so cool. we got to run through a couple more of these. So we're gonna do the fan ones, and the fan ones are pretty easy, right? I put the most toxic one I feel first is Reddit. Reddit forums is a community onto themselves. And a lot of companies have a big Reddit presence, but this is the wild, wild west when it comes to communities. Like, I'm not a huge Reddit fan because I personally feel it's regardless of what fence or what topic on any company, if you post that you say you hate something or you disapprove of something or like something, there's 20 people to tell you you're wrong, and then it's just the OK Corral of arguments.
I definitely agree with that. Again, it depends on the subreddit, because the weird thing about Reddit is that each subreddit is like its own community. So like one subreddit will be hella toxic, and then like in the Cypher System subreddit, they're actually really encouraging. Like no one says, "Hey, what do you mean you don't understand that rule? Like what's wrong with you?" Like no, they actually talk it through. It's kind of like an extension of the CU. Like that's like a fan run thing. Like people are generally pretty nice on the Cypher System subreddit.
I'm a member of the Cypher System subreddit, but I'll be lying to say that I look at that thing maybe like once a year.
Oh, it's not super active or anything, but they are nice.
I can't say one way or another, but my general experience with Reddit is willing to put the boxing gloves on, I might spend 10 or 15 minutes on Reddit.
I agree with that though, in a general sense though. Yes.
Yeah. All right, so the next one I was going to say was Discord and Facebook communities. Here's where we have the most experience at. Reddit, we don't have to rank MCG on Reddit things because they really don't have much to do with that. But Discord and Facebook communities, we have the most experience with this. We cultivated an entire Discord community based around Monte Cook Games, and we have well over 7,000 members on Discord, well over 2,000 members on Facebook. So I think we can actually talk a little bit about this. I think MCG have been supportive from as soon as they discovered us, from Darcy 6 years ago, reaching out to us because we had this little community. And just so people know, MCG reached out to us when our community was about 100 members. No, I'm sorry. It might have been like 200 members.
Tiny community at the time.
Yeah. Within 6 months of them promoting us, we went from 200 members to 1,500 members within 6 months.
It was crazy.
And that was just MCG saying, hey, this is a cool place to go if you want to talk about Monte Cook Games. So they've been on the ground floor of promoting the CU from the very beginning. We're going to be forever grateful for them for that. And at first it was Darcy Ross introducing us to everyone in MCG. She was the original community. And then Latia took over and was just as supportive. And now Kate is the community related, and she's just as supportive. We have yet to have a bad experience with anyone from MCG in charge of the community. So, kudos to them for that, because everyone from MCG has really helped us foster and really helped us build this community.
Yeah, and just to speak on like the fan versus company run aspect, this way, like when a fan, like a community, like gains more traction than their official like thing, right? They get to decide whether, hey, this company this community kind of embodies what we believe in. Like they're inclusive, whatever their morals, whatever align with, right? Or they could say, hey, we don't want anything to do with that community. We'll just foster our official one, which is valid, right? But the cool thing about the fan stuff is it kind of lets them take temperature of the community without being directly. I mean, they do talk on the server from time to time, but generally speaking, it's just us, the community, like it's just the fans, and having the fans be like the hub of that whole situation, they kind of get a genuine, sincere reaction to things, right? Because when people are upset about something, whether it be like, oh, they're taking too long to respond to my tickets, or whatever, right? They in this space, a person like just a regular fan or whatever might feel more comfortable expressing that versus on an official server where they might be saying like, oh, am I going to get banned for saying that? Am I going to like in a fan space, it's more of like a safe space, so to speak, to like really express what you want to say.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fantastic point. We unless you're Alpha Dean, busting his chops, but you could be critical in the CU without it being, viewed as a negative, and not only, and most of the time, all the critical comments come from a place of love. Like they want it to be better. They really feel, that this might be either, like when the initial changes for Cypher came on, most people weren't going on, oh, this sucks. They were explaining exactly what their concerns were. And I think that can be helpful. It can be helpful for a company, and it's helpful to know that you can come to the CU and disagree. Like, anybody that knows the mod chat, right? And this came up a few times recently. I'm a firm believer in allowing people to express themselves to a point, of course. If you like grossly, you're a habitual line stepper, then yeah, there has to be some discipline. But I'm not a fan of like disciplining someone for breaking a rule once, or the habitual line stepper reference, but breaking a rule once. But so I feel like in the CU, everyone feels like they can have a disagreement as long as you come back to a civil place on the server. We don't have a problem with that.
Yep, and again, it's if like, let's say, alternate timeline, MCG just instead grew their own Discord, that might not take place. And again, I know it depends on the size of the company and whatnot, because some people will get on an official Discord and be very negative, toxic, whatever. But if MCG is a very they're inclusive, they're great, they're friendly. I think people would feel a little weird if they were the bigger, they were the community, right, so to speak, and going into there and then saying something negative. So it is nice that they have the fan aspect where we're running it and people feel safe to really say what's on their mind.
I do think it's really dependent on the moderation team. Like, I do think you can have that atmosphere in an officially run server, but I do think it depends on the moderation team. If you have a heavy-handed moderation team that likes to publicly warn and ban people for the first infraction, you're going to create that atmosphere. And it could be the reverse, even on the fan. If you have a moderation team that never steps in the way of people crossing the line, then you have Reddit. You know what I mean? So there's a fine line. There's a fine line between having that community atmosphere where people feel open and free to be able to express themselves, but not being volatile to one another. And, so I really think that's contingent on the moderation team you have, if I'm being 100% honest.
And what was I going to say? That there's a reason, and again, you may not know this, I don't know how chronically online you are. There's a reason Discord mod is used like a slur, like a derogatory term, like you're being like a Discord, like that's a thing online. People get made fun of for being Discord modish, and that's what you're talking about. Is these people who, like, they at the tiniest little misstep will be, hey, we're gonna ban you, or you're banned. Like, there's no discussion, there's no or they'll have a discussion, but it's in a way that's like, I'm talking down to you, and I'm gonna ban you anyway. There's no room for actual learning from your mistake. And that definitely helps or can change the atmosphere of a server. And Lord Burdock asks, and what happens if you do have a heavy-handed mod team? How would you handle that? You talk to them like they're people. Like, if we have an issue with our mods, we talk like, hey, we need to not be as heavy-handed here, or we need to be more lax here, whatever, right? You just have a discussion.
I know all the guys offline, all the golden ones will tell you I'm viewed as the softy, because I'm always defending even to my fault. Like, sometimes I'm wrong, where we have a habitual line step and I'm still defending them, right? But you need that person in the mod team to say, hey, look, come on, they didn't break the rules that bad. That I was just never a fan of, just dropping a ban hammer.
Yes, just hard to agree on that.
All right, so the last, this is an A for me with MCG when it comes to fan-run communities. I think they do not only with us. I think they're supportive of a lot of fan-run communities.
Yes, and that I would definitely rate them an A on this. And again, even though this is like more of we're talking about how fans run things, the fact that they, like with us, like what I know they do with KedHub, and basically there's a whole, if you look at the Anywhere door, all those creators on the Anywhere door were chosen and were given grants and all this shit.
And they all have their own communities.
Yes, and they all have, it's not like, the Anywhere door is kind of like a community umbrella, in that all the communities are kind of gathering on there. But that is true. Like each of these channels, like if you go on there, like I'm blanking on names, but all those channels have their own communities, whether it be on Discord and even on Moonbeam, they have their own text channels to discuss things. Like, and MCG, like, put them at the forefront. This is MCG was basically saying, hey, look at these communities, look at these actual plays, whatever, right? So they do get an A+ for supporting the fan run aspect of things.
All right, we'll touch on some of these quick ones because some of these might be. But I noticed too when I first got back into role playing like 10, 15 years ago, there was VTT communities. Specifically, I know Fantasy Ground and Roll20 had like seek for a game, like looking for a game community forum chat boards. And when I first got back into role-playing games, like Roll20 was like the first place I went to, and I noticed that the same people would like either play in each other's games or help promote each other's games. So there were like many communities within these VTT spaces, right? I think the biggest, like D&D is obviously the biggest like group in there, especially on Roll20. But those are little minor communities existing in these VTT spaces. So I figured I would bring that up as well as a fan-run community.
No, that's definitely super valid. And they definitely do help grow. Not again, they might not be part of the mainstream or whatever communities, but those small niche communities within like Roll20 or whatever other forum type VTTs, they do help grow the name. Like, because if they run interesting games, people are gonna be interested in that system. And that's what you're talking about. You saw the same people playing in the same games. They like that system, so they're playing those games.
Yeah, and they're more like tightly knit communities where it's harder to like openly become a part of because you might have to volunteer to play in like 2 or 3 games before you like join the group. But they are communities, like little sub communities. And Roll20 had a good like 30 or 40 people that only played Cypher. I don't think this is something necessarily that MCG, the company, could go in and say, hey, how can we support you? But I mean, they can support the VTT themselves by providing them assets, like what they're trying to do now with Alchemy and Roll20, and hopefully extend to Foundry and Fantasy Grounds. But that's the only way a company could support support a group like that.
And they're like starting
those
to.
Communities. Yeah. And they're starting to. All right. So we zoom past these because a lot of these are they're just more like blanket statements. The other one I had was gaming cafes, school role-playing clubs, and meetup groups. I didn't realize that meetup groups was a thing, but New York City actually has a vibrant and live meetup role-playing group. Most of it is Brooklyn-based. Like I noticed most of the games, but if you look up meetup and look up role-playing games, New York City has and I didn't even realize when I was doing this research, I didn't realize it was the world. It is a huge world. There was a ton of meetup communities, and I didn't see a Cypher one, if I'm being honest. I did see a Numenera game posted. I saw a Invisible Sun game posted, but I saw pretty much every other gaming company having huge meetup groups.
Yeah, and that's one I actually didn't think about, but it's for people like who want to play in person, right? And that's honestly the best way to play. Like these games are best in person. Let's be real. As nice it is to have the online convenience, playing in a physical space just hits different. It's better. So it makes sense that these meetup sites excel.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a community though, but it was interesting, so I had to put it in there. And the school role-playing clubs, as someone who was in my junior high school D&D club, is definitely a community. Like it's the same group of people, so, and almost every high school has a role-playing club. So those definitely fall in communities. It's been a while since I've been in high school. But, they definitely communities.
I imagine it's even more popular now, like within schools, because of how much D&D has exploded in the mainstream.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely valid. Like that's definitely a niche of community.
All right, and the last thing I have, which is also community, but it's something that I have zero experience in, is paid GM websites. And there's some popping up all over the place, but those absolutely have their own communities. There's some people that only play as a player in those communities. Like they literally, all they're playing consists of them paying someone else to run a game for them or run a campaign for them. I have zero experience with paid GM sites, so I can't really tell you how friendly those communities are, but I do know they have active, and they probably have the second or third most active community, if we're being honest.
Yeah, and the biggest, just to hit on the topic a little bit, the biggest positive and the reason I see in the mindset of doing that and being in those spaces constantly is they want to play in games online. They don't have many friends. If they're going to play with randoms online, knowing that people are paying to play no makes them at ease because they're not going to have shitty players at the table because they're paying to be there, right? They're not going to be late. They're not going to like dick around on their turns, like, because a paid GM will keep them in line, usually. I don't know, I'm going off best case scenario because I've never done this or been a part of it. And again, the players at the table, they have to pay to be there, so they're going to want the best experience, so they're not going to be jerks to each other or whatever, right? But you don't really have that guarantee with randoms and free games online.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't have much. And chat and on YouTube, if you have experience in those communities, let us know how it is. But I do agree with you. I think that most people have positive experience. We don't allow paid GMing on the CU not because we have anything against paid GMing, but we pride ourselves as being an entirely free site, and including our online convention. There's zero cost to participate in anything the CU does. So, we want to keep it that way, but we have nothing against paid G. I mean, don't hate the player, hate the game. We're never going to hate the hustle. You know what I mean? So I know we're running out of time, Al, so I'm going to ask you the last, and this is the most important question for not only you, but for the chat themselves, is what is the most important feature that you're looking for when you're joining a new community? Or what are you looking for in a gaming community to begin with?
I'll just, this is a real easy answer. And this is the same answer for any online community. You want a not toxic space where you can discuss your ideas and opinions freely. And even if there's disagreements, you can have those disagreements civilly and still be adults about it, right? A lot of online spaces are not like that. And again, basically these days I'm only really in the CU. But growing up, I was a part of a ton of different online communities, and there's always a level of toxicity to them. But the CU doesn't really, I mean, it exists minorly. Like, again, we've had to ban maybe 6 people over the course of our 8 years or whatever it is. So it's less than a person a year, which is bananas to think about. So for me, personally, it's having that area where, non-toxic space to enjoy the fandom, essentially. That's really what we are. We're a fandom. And I've been a part of cartoon fandoms and video game fandoms and blah blah, all that shit. But what it really boils down to is, do I feel comfortable sharing myself with these people? And that's what I think is most important when it comes to a community.
Me personally, first off, I absolutely agree with you. I think me personally though, I would think activity is probably the thing I'm looking for the most in a community, especially if we're talking about a tabletop RPG community, because if I'm being 100% honest, the reason why we started to see you in the first place was to run and play games, right? So if your community isn't active of people willing to run games and people willing to play games, you could be the friendliest place in the world, but if we're not running any funny shaped math rocks, I'm probably not going to stay there for long. personally. So I think activity will probably be the most important thing I would look in the community, then followed by exactly what you said. You know, a friendly, a friendly environment where you could be open and honest with each other. But I think activity has to be important because I want to play games and I want to run games and I want to talk about games. If there's nobody having these discussions about, if it's not active with discussion, it will be hard for me to stay in any community.
Agreed. I think the what we both said are like top two. Like those are very, especially for a TTRPG community. Because again, I was blanket statement saying like all communities, but for TTRPG specifically, yeah, you want to have people playing games because that's what we're here for. Play games, talk about games.
So yeah, I know Al gotta go, so I'm gonna speed into our spiel. But chat, let us know if we missed any communities because I'm positive we have. If there's anything that we may have missed or anything that you disagree with, because we say stuff that we disagree with all the time, let us know here in chat or let us know on YouTube. Please post it. But if you like us and you like what we do, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server for all things Monte Cook Games. We have the largest fan-run Discord for everything MCG, but if Discord's not for you, join our Facebook group. Not as big as our Discord, but still great conversations being had there daily. Give us a sub here on Twitch or follow us here on Twitch or go to the Anywhere door on Moonbeam and follow us there as well. Or go to our YouTube channel and like, share, and subscribe there. We're really trying to build all three platforms up as much as we can. And any help you could give us on any of those fronts would be greatly appreciated. Our videos are always free, but if you want to support us financially in any way, you could give us a little donation on Ko-fi. It helps us out with little things like running online conventions. Or go to our online store and pick up some cool Cypher Unlimited merch. And yes, the CypherCon shirts and all the mugs and hats are all still available at this moment. And last but not least, we love you guys.
Yep, thank you guys so much for coming by, having this discussion with us. It was excellent, and this also just speaks to how great it is to be part of a fan-run community, because we have excellent people coming in, chatting with us, and yeah, you wouldn't have these talks if communities didn't exist. So yeah, that's going to be my ending point. Love you guys, thank you so much, and from us at the CU, we will see you later.